Hey guys, what's up? Today is Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. It's 5 days after the Indy Mini Marathon that I just participated in. First off, just want to, of course, thank everybody for the support and always cheer me on, pushing me to try to get to the next level as always. Really appreciate that as always. Guys, love you all. Let's just cut straight to the chase. The race was a disaster. It was a catastrophe that I was afraid of happening, to be honest. And I wasn't trying to overthink about going into the race, but I'm gonna get right into it. The first half of the race was good, but I really felt it early on. But then the second half was a complete nightmare. It was just a big slowdown in the second half. Absolute struggle to get to the end. We'll talk about what went wrong and my future in terms of what I'm going to do in terms of racing distance events, because I'm starting to kind of change things in terms of what I want to do for the future, among other things. But to be honest, going into this race, I wasn't even 100% ready, and I was originally not going to do this race. This was not something I originally scheduled months ago, but then my dad was going to do the half marathon, but he did the 5K. I won't talk about his race. We're just going to stick solely to mine, even though I don't want to talk about it, to be honest with you. But it's important to talk about it, honestly, because of the fact that there's not everything's going to go to plan. There's times where success is not always going to be in front of you. Sometimes you have to face failure to be able to come back better. Failure is important. You learn things. You're supposed to fail sometimes. If there was no failure, then we can't learn to be even better than what we were originally at that point in time. But so yeah, I wrote down some splits and talk about why my watch is being kind of weird in race 2, and I wrote down official 5K, 10K splits, so on and so forth. Yeah, it was just an utter, just it was like ridiculous how everything fell off the wheel, basically, or fell off the ship basically, but at the halfway point. So with training had it had been pretty inconsistent leading up to the race, and I don't think I would have been able to really change much because of the whole thing with getting sick at the end of March and then just struggling, and then also the weather. The weather has been so weird this year. It's been so up and down. There are days where it's in the 30s and it's windy and I don't even want to run outside, and then there's days where it's actually 80, but my body's like, yeah, that's a little bit too much. So it's like, I don't know. I try to go for it. I really try to keep it together with training. There was a couple of times where I'm asking myself, why am I about to do this race? And here's the thing. For me, it's like, when I set out to do something and I am pursuing that thing, I don't want to quit. For me, it's like, if there is any reason to be able to keep going, as long as it's a good thing, then you go for it. Now, if there's something where it's going to be a major setback, then yeah, absolutely stop what you're doing. But for me, it was like, I wanted to still be able to try and put in as much as I can to see what I can do with this race. And sure enough, I wasn't even close to being 100% ready for it. So in the last 2 weeks, though, I did get in a couple of nice long runs. But again, I don't know. I feel like I've pieced it together with what happened. Who in the hell knows? I don't know. Pretty damn disappointed, that's for sure. So the start of the race, got up at 5 a.m. I slept pretty decently, I guess. I woke up feeling okay, pretty much. So, get there. The weather wasn't bad at all. It was actually close to 60 for the race. I wore the long sleeve that was given to us. The mini marathon runners wear a long sleeve, and the 5K runners have a short sleeve shirt. And I was going to wear a short sleeve. I was debating it, and I should have wore a short sleeve because I got hot really quickly in the first mile. I rolled my sleeves up, and I think that did the trick a little bit, but the sun came out briefly, but then it went back behind the clouds for the rest of the race. Not to mention there was a slight breeze, but honestly, it's about as good as it gets for this time of the year for a race, because this race typically happens the first Saturday of every May. So again, here I wrote down my splits, and my race started at 7:50. I was in Corral Inn, which is the first corral in wave 3. My dad started at 7 o'clock in the morning with his 5K. I watched him take off, and he struggled with his race, but he finished. I know I said I wasn't going to talk about this race, but I'm just to briefly mention it, I guess now. He finished though strong. He did his best. So basically for me, it was like, my little dog just being weird. So obviously the goal in a race like this is you focus on your own pace. You don't let anyone else dictate your overall effort, and that's what I try to do to my absolute best, because there's a lot of people that take off in an instant and just like to just push it in the first bit. It's like, you do realize this is 13 miles, right? So what was weird is my mile one split said 10:17. Now here's the weird thing: we came to the clock that said mile one in the clock about 15 seconds later. So my mile splits were reading ahead of schedule basically. So these are not 100% accurate, I would say. But I definitely was going slightly faster than I wanted to. I wanted to be closer to 10:50 pace. My first mile was probably about 10:30 or so. And then you get to mile two, and that's when, of course, I had to roll my sleeves up because I'm already getting so damn hot. And, I don't know how to explain it. It was like my body was just kind of like, felt slightly heavy. Through mile two was in 10:21 according to what my watch. I'm going by what my watch has, but again, it was probably in the range of 10:30, 10:40. Mile three is where things felt a little uneasy, and that's not a good sign when you don't want to feel uneasy that early in a race, because it's like, okay, how do I mitigate this whole thing and save it? For me, it was like, well, I'm going to continue to warm up, and my hope was I was going to continue to feel things out and get into a nice rhythm. That never happened, actually, because by like mile 3 to 4, and I took my first gel 15 minutes before the race. I went with all vanilla this time of the gels. I had 4 of them. I took the first one before the race, and that was a good move. But for some reason, my stomach was wanting to mess with me a little bit, be a little bit on the heavier side. I don't know. And speaking of that, I'm not trying to go on a tangent. I don't know, I'm trying to get through the race, but I weigh like 180 right now. I'm slightly on the heavier side, but lately it's like also too with lifting. I've been lifting actually for much of this year. Lately it's been more upper body, but not a whole lot. It hasn't been too aggressive. Because I'm getting closer to the race. It's like I kind of need calorie surplus and whatnot. So I don't know. It's like trying to embrace it or whatever. Because I always kept being like, I want to be like around 170, but it's like, it doesn't really, to me, with like weighing a little bit heavier, it's like, I don't really like notice it when I run. I don't like really feel it. I don't know. It doesn't really like seem like it makes much of a difference to me personally. I don't usually really notice it, but I could definitely tell something was wrong by like mile 4, because I got there and I'm like, man, I'm starting to like just I feel friggin' off during this point. Mile 5 was picking it up. Shouldn't have done that. Was starting to really question how the second half of the race is going to go by this point. Mile 5 is like, I took my second gel right before mile 4. I got to mile 5 and it was like, okay, I'm probably feeling like I'm gonna have to walk soon. And it's like, okay, that's no big deal. As long as I can kind of keep up the pace to an extent to where it averages out to a PR, I don't care how this ends up going like that. Like, just however I gotta do is however I gotta do it. But obviously that's not how things always go. Sometimes things like to turn on you in an instant. So mile 5, I was like at 52 minutes flat or something like that, which is faster than I wanted it to be. My 5K split officially, these are official splits, by the way, from my bib chip. My 5K split was 32:33, which is an average pace of 10:28 per mile. So I was going a bit faster than I wanted to. And by mile 5, I started walking a little bit, but I'm like, well, if I can run for a couple minutes and then walk for just maybe a minute or two, I can like, again, average that out to under a PR, or average that out to being a PR of some sort still. then I'm in good shape. I did something similar in 2019 when I ran the hardest race of my entire life because of that, doing that tactic, and also the rain. My body was completely shredded. My legs were shredded after that. It was ridiculous. I had never felt so much pain in my life after that. But I don't know, something within me that day just was just like pushing it, and I missed a PR by 18 seconds that day. This time around, my body was like, we're not doing that this time. We can't do that for you. Because when I would go back to running, I ran a bit faster than PR pace, which is 10:40 per mile. My watch would read under 10 minutes, under 10-minute pace. It was just like, I'm trying to do whatever I can to salvage things. And eventually my legs got tired of it. And that's, of course, a lot of it's because the lack of distance under my belt, or should I say lack of mileage under my belt. So my legs weren't quite ready in general for this one. Got to the 10K mark. Mile 6 was 10:44 according to my watch. It's probably slower than that. My 10K split was 1:05:47. That's still on pace for a PR with a 10:35 mile pace average. I was trying to high five cheerleaders at this point I was trying to do anything I can to keep myself on a roll. That wasn't doing me any favor though, because my body just said, Steven, we're going off a cliff right now. I mean, no, this whole entire thing didn't go on a gradual downhill. This thing went off a freaking cliff in an instant. And when that happens, it's like, yeah, you're screwed at that point. I got to the halfway split in 1:08:31. That was an actual halfway split. I remember kept looking at my watch for that. I wanted to get the time on that. 1:08:31, which is on pace for like 2:17:02 if you multiply that time by 2. But I'm thinking, oh gosh, and I'm trying to do the math in my head. I'm like, okay, I gotta run. If I want to get this personal best, I gotta be no slower than like 1:11. And it was like, okay, I don't think I'm gonna be able to manage this. Who knows? That's where everything shut off. It's like the whole thing of the lights are on, but nobody's home. That's where everything just got completely worse, like way worse than I could have ever imagined. Was really feeling it at this point. My legs were starting to turn into bricks, and it's like, there's no freaking way I feel like this was 6 miles to go, and that's a very discouraging thing to think about. You still have an hour plus to go in the race, and you're feeling like you already ran most of the race at mile 6.5. That's pretty damn embarrassing, I feel like, to feel that way. And mile 7 went over 11 minutes, and that's where everything just crumbled at this point. I was just like to myself, I don't know if I'm even going to make it, to be honest with you, because I could barely even do the whole run, then walk for a second pace. I found myself walking way more than I was expecting in the second half of the race. Even my music playlist at this point in the race, I had it flipped to be more intense in the second half, and I could even barely capitalize on that. So it's like I got all these really great songs on, but yeah, I could barely even freaking run into them because I'm over here feeling like I'm a freaking propane tank or whatever. I feel like I have freaking, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out. There's many different things I can use as an example. I feel like I have 50-pound dumbbells attached to my feet right now at this point. It's ridiculous. And I actually high-fived WTHR's Dave Calabro at the start line with the Speedway, and I was hoping doing that too. And it wasn't just to do this. I wanted to high-five him. It would be pretty cool to do that. That was awesome. I got to do that real quick. And I was hoping too I can use that as a bit of energy boost. That didn't really do much for me either because my body was just at this point was just not wanting to respond to my command of wanting to go harder. It just, when your body is done, it's done. Well, then again, though, there's once this saying by David Goggins, and this is something it's hard to think about, but it is what it is. If you feel like you're done, your body's only at its 40% of its full capability, basically. It's like I'm thinking to myself, I gotta still have something left, but it was just like I'm trying, and the resistance level just got higher and higher for myself. It just, from within, it just didn't want to do it. I felt like my stomach was just getting heavier too. I was taking a little bit of liquid as well, but everything was going against me. So getting through mile 8 and 9, and each, I'm just thinking, okay, 1 mile at a time, and even that was getting so damn difficult. And I mean, this is where I'm just so delirious, and everything in my head turned so negative at this point. It was like I'm watching everything slip away from me at a record pace. It's ridiculous. The 220 pacer freaking passed me actually on the front straight of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and I'm thinking to myself, well, there goes 220. And I'm like, well, let me see if I can try to catch them. Even that was so damn difficult because my legs were feeling like freaking cinder blocks. So we're at the point of no return, and I get off the track. I try to get a win. I keep trying to move though, trying to keep going, and it just keeps getting worse. There is no worse feeling than bonking like that when you still have a long way to go. I mean, there's 5 miles is still a long way. It is. I don't care what anybody says. That's still a lot of time left. There's still a lot of distance to cover, and each step just hurt more and more. Now, I will say the one thing that saved me, I think, in this race were my shoes. I was wearing the Hoka Clifton 9s, and I definitely am grateful for having those, because if I didn't, who knows how my feet would have felt. I thought I injured my left foot, actually, in the 2019 mini marathon, because it felt like somebody stabbed me in the left side of my left foot after that race. I remember that very, very well, unfortunately. But the Clifton 9 helped my feet through much of the race. My feet weren't really bothering me too much during the race. They were hurting, but it wasn't like excruciating level pain like 2019 was. So, everything just, nothing, everything was, my morale was so low. It's so damn discouraging to watch it happen. Then I started to get upset. I'm just like thinking to myself, man, I don't know if I'm even going to make it under 2.5 hours even. Now I'm starting to question myself with that. But I'm like, no, we have to keep going. We have to keep going. Why are we even thinking about this right now? I don't understand why I can't just keep moving and let's just think about getting to the end. I mean, finishing's finishing. Sometimes time does not matter. Sometimes you just have to finish the race, and that's exactly what I try to focus on doing. Get to the finish line, get to my dad, and let's get the hell out of here. So that's exactly what I just kept trying to focus on. 15K mark, 143.44 or 49. I'm not sure. I think 143.49. Yeah, 11:08 per mile. So I'm definitely way off pace at this point, obviously. But again, we're 1 mile at a time. We're trying to get there to the end. I swear, mile 10, it just like when I got to mile 10, it almost just seemed like it just was overwhelming at this point. I'm like, I did not come here to feel like this. This is just a bunch of, you know what I want to say. I'm just, it's a difficult thing to describe. Because I'm trying to enjoy the race, and I can't even enjoy anything. I was never, ever at one point happy in this race. Not at all. Never once at all. Except for the Dave Calabro interaction. But other than that, there was no point in this race where I was excited for any of it. I just was like, man, I feel like I'm in absolute hell right now. And that's the last thing I want to feel like. And that's where I was for the remainder of the race. It never got any better. And I texted my dad right at mile 10. Yeah, I actually texted my dad and I said, hey, expect me to finish a little later. I feel like the lower half of my body is about to be completely just disintegrated at this point. I don't even know how much further I can even do this. He told me, where am I at? And you can do this. I even texted my group chat saying I feel freaking terrible right now. I'm at like war out here. This just feels like Armageddon with my own self. I'm trying to keep going and still trying to push it. And then by like mile 10 and a half, never before has this happened in a race. My left freaking calf started to cramp up. So that was wonderful. That is I have never had a cramp in a race in my entire life. Never. And I've been running for almost 10 years. Never has happened once. Had to actually stop for 20 seconds on the side and kind of stretch it out real quick, but that didn't really do much. So I kept feeling it, kind of trying to come back a little bit so to like walk a bunch. It was a total disaster. It was like, I'm like, man, am I even going to be able to really run anymore for the remainder of the race? Which I did. I jogged on and off a lot, but it was like a lot of walking, obviously. Then we get to mile 12, and the 2:30 pacer passes me. I'm like, okay, that's where I'm just like, in my head, I'm like just going, no, 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 come back. It was one of those things. That's where I feel like utter garbage. It sucked. It really sucked. They got away from me. They got away from me in a hurry. It seemed like they were moving at 6-minute mile pace to me, like in comparison to me walking. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're getting away from me so fast. Yeah, so just went over the bridge onto New York Street for the final mile. Really tried to hammer it home. Oh, and also, my freaking headphones died on me with a mile to go, so that was wonderful. I was charging them the night before. Hadn't had many issues with them until up to this point, I guess. I don't know. They still work decently, but might be time to get a new pair soon. Who knows? But long story short, I did my best to get to the finish line. And then I saw my dad with about, like 400 meters to go. Saw him. He was videoing. I told him, let's get here, and whatever. It was just time to get to the finish line. So I really tried to start picking it up. I feel my left calf cramping up again. And I didn't care. I was trying to change up my form. I looked real stupid if you were to watch me run at this point. I looked like a clown, honestly. Trying to change up my form, and then my right calf cramped up at the same time. So both calves are cramping. I'm like, oh, this is just great. I let out some choice words I'm not repeating. But I tell you what, it was just, I'm like, man, I'm done. I'm so freaking done. Got to the finish line finally. I ran into the finish line slowly with about 50 meters left to go. And I sat down. I'm just sitting there thinking, what was that? It was like one of those, what was that things? Yeah, 2:33:38 was my time. Was not pleased with that, but I'm happy to finish. This is what the current thing is on the placement. 8,404 out of 14,194 people. But still, I wanted it to be a better experience, and for me personally, it's like I'm more of a shorter distance runner. Especially in high school, I did mid distance. I was an 800 and 1,600 meter runner, but I'm not trying to make excuses here. This is the real thing right here. This is just reality. For me, it's like I'm at the point where I want to train for stuff that I have more success in. Like the half marathon, I've ran 3 of them now, and the first one was the most successful one. And even in that one, at mile 11, I had to walk the last 2 miles because my freaking part of my right leg wanted to fall asleep, which was stupid. But for me, it's like, I think from here on out, I want to focus really on the 800 meters to the 5K, because that's kind of where my realm lies in terms of not only success, but having fun with it. Yeah, I mean, training is strenuous, especially with some of those events, especially depending on what you're trying to do. But, I feel like I can, be more compatible with it. All this slow, long running for me, sometimes it can be a drag. I feel like it's a drag sometimes. It's not. I mean, yeah, I understand the fact that you have to run long with the 5K too, in terms of having those long runs. You have to eventually go up closer to 8, 9, 10 miles. But in that case, it's a training run. You're not having to think about it as an actual race. It's like, okay, it's more, I wouldn't say leisurely, but it's more manageable or whatever. I have no idea. I have no idea how to explain it. But I think you get what I'm trying to say there. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna really do a full marathon later this year. I think I'm gonna back off from that. To be honest, I was originally going to, but after my experience this past Saturday, I'm just at this point, because with a race like this, you miss like one crucial week of training, like closer to the race, it can really set things back for you potentially, like for real, and it can. I feel like, because you really have to be ready for a race like that. You can't fake a half marathon. You sure as hell can't fake a full marathon. Um, but for me, it's like I want to be content with um, I want to be content with what I'm doing of running, and that's going back to my roots. Especially going into next year, I'm gonna focus on the 800 and 1600 next year. The remainder of this year, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I could go back to the 5K like I did last fall. Who knows? I'll have a video kind of thinking about talking about that maybe by next week or two. Who knows? But stay tuned for it. Once again, though, thanks to my family and friends for always just being there for me, and also all of us having faith together that we get through tough things in life. I don't know what to say at this point. I'm losing my words, but um, yeah, that's gonna conclude this video. I don't know what else to say anymore. I don't want. Let's not make it this awkward. Let's end this simply by saying, thank you guys for always uh just being there for me, and thank you so much for thank you for. This is ridiculous. I don't know why I'm blanking on what to say. Thank you guys for pushing me to always be better every day. That's another that was what I was looking for. And again, I'll have a video updating you guys on what I might potentially do for the remainder of the year. Stay tuned for that. And guys, please stay safe and healthy. This world's insane, literally. Take care, everybody, and we'll talk again soon.